ewe zisondele, ewe zisondelene, zonke izizwe.
Thank you, Mpumalanga, for setting the tone for us. Yeah, thank you. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you very much. It feels like we connecting now and having a feeling of conference when we have our songs and this togetherness. But we're going to call on our treasurer, Mr. Francisco Cornelius, then to open for us, to introduce for us our guest speaker, who is known to us, but protocol requires that we always share who is with us. Francisco?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Professor Nick Smiar is a lifetime member of the NACCW, and he has been coming to South Africa for 38 years. He's been a child and youth care worker for about 58 years and a social worker for close to 55 years. Nick worked in residential treatment, day treatment, psychiatric hospitals, emergency community response services, mental health settings, and therapeutic foster care. He was a frontline child and youth care worker, a child and youth care supervisor, clinical child therapist and supervisor, an executive director, and a board member. His bachelor's degree is in classical languages. His first master's degree is in theology and church history, and a PhD candidacy at the same time from the Divinity School of the University of Chicago. His second master's degree is an MSW in psychiatric social work and a PhD in social welfare policy from the Jane Addams College of Social Work at the University of Illinois at Chicago. Nick is Professor Emeritus of Social Work at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire. He taught at university for more than 20 years. In retirement, he is an elected official as a county board supervisor in his home country. Nick works also in Germany, Austria, Finland, and Netherlands, Croatia, and Serbia, doing training of childcare personnel who work with potentially violent clients. Over the years, Nick Smiar made valuable contributions over many years at the NACCW national and regional conferences. And for many years, he traveled to the country and offered his expertise at workshops and training sessions on numerous topics. Today, he will once again speak on a topic that is so pertinent to us in the field of child and youth care, because it speaks to real challenges we are facing, but he also shares how he stumbled, as he said, into child and youth care work. And we're looking forward to hearing about that, Nick. So please, everybody, join me in welcoming Professor Emeritus Nick Smiar. You are muted now, Nick.
Am I on now?
There you go. Thank you.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you. I don't even recognize that person. Thank you for the introduction. Sanibanan, Mulweni, Tumalang, Pafoy Tunani Bosis, Kuyamora, brothers and sisters. Good morning, brothers and sisters. I am very honored by the invitation to speak to you. But I do not want to disappoint you. This is not an address. This is a reflection. I gave it the title Accidental Journey because I look at all my years in child and youth care work and the other work I've done as truly accidental. I'm going to talk about my experiences, but I don't want this to be a one-way conversation. So while I'm speaking, if you have a comment or you want to add something, please do. Otherwise, you're going to be listening to me for the next 45 minutes or so, and that could be very boring. I also recognize that I'm between you and lunch, and that is not a comfortable place for a speaker to be, so I will try to be as efficient as I can. I gave it the title Accidental Journey because when I was about 24 or so, if you had said to me that this is what you would be and you would do by the time you're 80 years old, which I am, I would never have believed you. I was in Catholic seminary. I was about 6 months away from being a deacon and decided to leave and to go into academic theology studies. And so I applied at the Divinity School at the University of Chicago. I was accepted. And then I thought, ooh, I have to have a job. I have to pay my way. And I had no particular skill. But the previous summer, I had worked in summer camp with children from two children's homes in the Chicago area. And so one of my colleagues there said, "Oh, you could work as a childcare worker." And I said, no, I don't think so. I don't think that will go well at all. And he said, no, you should really try it. And so I did. I began work as a child and youth care worker in a residential setting on the south side of Chicago. Now you have to recognize this is back in the 1960s. And so the preparation, orientation, training didn't exist. My orientation and training was that I was handed keys and I was told, here are the keys, there are the children, see you at 5 o'clock. So those were the days of not much training. But I learned a great deal, and I have to say, as I'm sure is true of all of you, the children are great teachers. I have to humbly say they surely taught me a lot. My first group were 5 and 6 year olds, believe it or not, and I had 7, and I spent my entire day counting from 1 to 7. And if I ever missed that and wound up with 6, I was in trouble. It went pretty well. I moved on from there to another residential setting on the north side of Chicago. In the meanwhile, I finished my master's degree in theology and church history, and I began my doctoral work in that topic. So by that time, child and youth care workers were beginning to be recognized as having some role to play. Although we had no leadership role, there was not much respect for child and youth care work, and there was almost no training. I have been very fortunate in my life in child and youth care work and in social work. They have the most wonderful supervisors. And one of my earliest supervisors in child and youth care work is the one who said to me, you should do workshops. This was 1968. I had been a child care worker for 2 years. And again, I said, oh, no, I don't think so. But he insisted, and I did it. And many of you know I do workshops. So over the years, I think I've done probably a few hundred workshops. But my point is, it was because someone was recognizing that there were skills in child and youth care work that could be formulated and that could be taught, first of all. And second, that child care workers should be training child care workers, because in those days, the social workers were in charge of everything. And frankly, the social workers didn't really know a heck of a lot. So I began doing some training. This is in beginning in 68, 69, at state conferences. I moved from the that residential treatment program on the north side of Chicago, I was doing my my master's in social work. I had switched out of divinity school because I realized that my calling really was in child and youth care work. And those days, the only, shall I say, license that you could get was a master's in social work. And so that's what I did. I went for a master's in social work. And I ultimately wound up at the end of my internship in a children's home in Joliet, outside of Chicago. It had just, the entire field was changing at the time. The old orphanages were closing. They were converting into residential treatment centers. I wound up in one of those as a social work intern, but it was really, I was really doing child and youth care work. And my supervisor, I had a wonderful supervisor, and he made sure that we had training. The long, the short of the story is, eventually I became the director, the executive director of that agency. That agency was a leader in the state of Illinois, and not only in training for child and youth care work, but in the integration of child and youth care workers into, for example, into classrooms in education, into foster care, into community emergency services. We expanded the child and youth care work across the whole range. That was the beginning of, excuse me, that was the beginning of the that sort of work. So that takes me into the middle 70s. I finished my master's in psych social work in 1973. And when I finished, I went to work at that agency in Joliet as a child therapist. Then I became a director of the therapeutic services, always working together with the child and youth care workers. At the time, our agency was responsible for establishing a child care worker association in our state, for setting up training, and so on. So I often think that I'm very much like Forrest Gump. If you know the American film Forrest Gump, you know, Forrest Gump sort of stumbled his way through history. And that's how I think of my experience. I have lived through the development of child and youth care work, both in the United States and in South Africa. The story in South Africa is that while I was working in the agency in Joliet, a friend of mine started a master's program in child and youth care work at Nova Southeastern University in Florida, which we had summer sessions, and then we met with students through the year, at first by telephone, and at first individually, and then in small groups. In that time, I had a small group of 5 persons from South Africa, and this is going to be the link. Some of them are on the call now. Matilda Morlong is here, I think. I know you're here somewhere, Matilda. Can't see your name. And so I did a 3-course module with those folks by phone, and then they came to Florida for the summer sessions. When we were done, a couple of them said, "You should come to South Africa." And I said, "You should invite me." They invited me, and I came. That was 1985, I think. In the meanwhile, I had attended an a FISE, international conference in Canada. And at that conference, there were South African members. We had a presentation on child and youth care work in South Africa. I distinctly remember it because we were told, we consider it a good day when we don't hear gunfire outside of our children's home. And at the end, I was in such admiration and awe, I immediately joined NACCW in 1985. And shortly after that, I came to South Africa for the first time. I think it was late in 85 or early in 86. I had been coming to South Africa on a fairly regular basis. It's becoming more difficult financially, but this mode that we have now is quite good. The point I'm trying to make here is not so much about me as it is about what has happened in child and youth care work. You also have lived through this in South Africa. I've witnessed this. I've been a part of it. I've watched it. I've contributed to it, I hope. That child and youth care work is an identifiable set of skills. It is a profession. And by that, I mean, and I point this out when I do workshops on ethics, profession means you're professing something to society. And what you're professing are core values and principles. And you're agreeing to live by that. As a group of people formulate those values and principles into a recognizable, transmissible body of knowledge, and they commit themselves to it, you have the birth of a profession. And that's what's happened in South Africa. The profession has not only established itself, but in my opinion anyway, is respected. Now, I know that's a problem. It was a problem in the States. We child and youth care workers there, and in South Africa too, were considered babysitters and didn't have much respect in the institutions. And as the child care workers gained the skills and organized and made their presence known, that began to change. Again, I saw it in my own agency in the United States. When I went there, the supervisors of the units were social workers. We changed that. The supervisors of the child care workers were supervisors. And the second thing we changed was on the teams. The child care workers had an equal voice with the social worker, with the psychiatrist, with the psychologist, with the teacher. That was all part of what was happening developmentally. And I believe that it is still happening. It hasn't reached the final stage. And it's still happening in South Africa. Child and youth care work does have respect. And the comments that Zenny was making and that Francisco was making indicate that from that conference that you just had on Wednesday. So what I'm trying to develop here is an awareness of our journeys, our individual journeys, and the contributions we have all made to child and youth care work, the contributions we can still make. So I say to you, to those of you who have been around a while and you've acquired some skills, you have a professional obligation to share those skills with others, to do workshops. So don't invite me to do a workshop that you can do. You know, I'm the white guy from America. Ngingu mlungu America, as they say in Zulu, I think. I've learned, if I go back to myself, I've learned a great deal from my experiences. You, my friends in South Africa, have been extremely generous and supportive and so on as I've stumbled my way through. On my very first day, I'll confess this, that was with Barry Lodge many, many years ago. And I said to Barry on my first day, Barry, consider me stupid because you have to teach me. And what you have taught me, you all have taught me, is cultural humility. And I am amazed. I am amazed in South Africa at the blend, the back and forth, the in and out of the cultures, the languages, everything. It's a lesson to be learned. Now, I know it's not perfect. I know there are struggles and so on. But if you folks would step back and look at what you've done over the last 30, 35 years or so, it's amazing. So you have a great deal to teach us. This is the reason why back in 1994, one of my social work students approached me and said, could I do my internship in South Africa? And I said, I have no idea. No one ever asked me. So I began to check on that. And I was very complicated. And I wasn't getting a straight answer. And finally, I found someone who did give me a straight answer. And we did arrange for our first student to come to South Africa as a social work intern with Sunshine Headland. And she worked at Ethelbert. After Sunshine, this was 95, I think. Next year we sent 2, the next year we sent 3, the next year we sent 4. Our group is coming down in about a week or so. 3 interns into Durban Children's Home this time around, and a group of 8 or 9 for immersion. So South Africa, for me, has contributed to my own cultural experience and humility. I've learned you are never 100% culturally integrated. It's really very, very, very difficult. But you all have been very generous, and you all have been very generous with my students who come back and they all say this was a life-changing experience, transformative, because they have not experienced the richness of the culture and the experiences that they have with you all, and me at the same time. The upshot, the end result of all of this work with South Africa, for me, is that I have this sense that I can still contribute something. Now, I'm not saying that just about me, but I mean that about you also. I would like you to reflect on what you have learned, what you have to offer, and don't shortchange yourself the way I did. I had to have other people push me in. That's why I call it an accidental journey. I stumbled into child and youth care work. And in some ways, I stumbled my way through. And if it weren't for some very gifted supervisors that I had, who were amazing people, I would not have been able to do what I've been able to do. So my little life story is intended to be an incentive for you to reflect on your journey and to think and talk about how you can contribute to child and youth care work. There's much to be done in South Africa. Many good things have begun. I heard Zenny talking about child care workers working in schools and the justice system and so on. There's much work to be done, and I think that's good. That's a challenge. You never reach an end point. Excuse me. I would like at this time to invite your comments, because remember I said this is not just about me. I would like to hear your comments or your questions. Are people able to unmute and do that, Zenny?
Yes, people can. Go ahead, Chair. Go ahead, Chair.
Yes, we will ask them to raise their hands, Nick, and or comment in the chat box. I don't know, Zenny, if there's anything that you have can summarize for now. I don't see any hands yet. People that want to share here or in the group. Zenny?
Well, don't be shy, people.
Yes, I think tell your stories. It's a lovely way to round up, I think, our Child and Youth Care Worker Week in a kind of a relational way where we share some of our stories. I hear that Francisco saying he followed almost an identical journey to you. I see Jabu's put something down about a very different journey. I've got a very different one myself. But let's hear from people. How did you stumble? How did you come into child and youth care?
Yes,
Who'd
thank
like
you.
Okay, Jabu, you can open the gate for us. Maybe the
Yes.
others. Thank you. Welcome. You can switch your mic.
Thank you very much, Chair. My video is actually not working. So I think with me, I actually came into childcare because, you know, when you come from a family like a family, a big family, and you know there's no funds to actually take you to university, and as well there was no passion. You know, it came in as something that I just want to do because I didn't have actually a plan on what to do. But as I started working in an organization, I fell in love with what I was doing with children. And when I was actually chosen to go for the childcare training, you know, it didn't work out the first time. We were chosen again. Then I actually, you know, went for training. And in my training, I did very well. I remember Sabitha, you know, during the training, she would actually, you know, identify me as, you know, as one of the best learners who was dedicated. You know, she would even invite me to say, come and attend this particular seminar activity, come and help me out on this particular things. You know, she said, Chabu, you know, I would love you to come to the training, but because there is a mentorship position, I would actually allow you to take that journey. I went through as well. I worked with Shoni, who actually pushed me beyond limits. I worked with Zeni and Donald. So, you know, in that process, I got to identify myself and get to see myself. And in the way, there were challenges, but that process was actually polishing of the diamond. So I'm very actually happy. I didn't look back. Thank you.
Perfect. That's perfect. If I remember my Zulu correctly, your first name Jabalile means joyousness, doesn't it? Joy.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, it does.
And that's very fitting. Thank you for your comment, Jabalile. Giyabonga.
Thank you. Are there anyone else that want to share? Just
Richard would like to speak. There's a hand up here. It's Sibongile.
You may speak, Richard, and then Sibongile after him.
Good morning, everyone. I remember when I entered the field, I was working in the community. I did workshops. One of the challenges that I had in the community is you always had to go look for your clients, or you would find a venue and it became a white elephant. Then I thought to myself, hey man, in residential care facilities, you won't have to go look for your clients. They are there 24/7. So I said to myself, that would be perfect. I even said to myself, I can even wake them up in the evening and do workshop for them. So I thought it was just going to be a walk-in. To my realization, I actually realized that it was actually more than that. So I had to change from community into the field that I'm currently into. I'm going to tell you now, Professor, my journey so far has been rewarding. Each and every day, I get to learn something new. And I think my mentors and my trainers have always been the young people that I work with. So I am absolutely very happy that I am where I am today. And I'm still looking forward to more things that's going to happen, because I'm definitely I'm willing and able. Thank you.
Thank you. Giyabonga Bafueto.
Thank you, Richard. Then Sibongile.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for an opportunity, Chairperson. I think for me, it is kind of similar to Jabu's story, because it was at the time where there were no other means that I can maybe further my studies due to the family situation. And then, you know, I used the crisis as an opportunity, because it was at the time, I remember I was doing part-time job as an ABET tutor, teaching old people in the morning for a few hours. I think it was 2 or 3 hours in the morning. Then after that, I used to go to the community resource center that was there in my community to to assist with whatever they were doing as a volunteer. Then it came at that time that there was a call for training of child and youth care workers from Department of Social Development. Then I used that opportunity, and it was not said in a nice way. You know, the way child and youth care training or child and youth care practice was described and explained to me. It was not in a nice way, because it was an unknown qualification in the community. Then the way it was painted for me to understand what exactly was happening in the training, or what was the training bringing to the community, it was not a nice way. Then I was told to recruit people who are interested. And then I used the opportunity for myself. Then I said, okay, let me take this opportunity and go for this training myself. And then it's when, you know, I had an opportunity to connect the dots in terms of how I grew up, connecting my background to the profession. When I started the training, then I realized that, you know, looking back at my extended family, how I grew up, what opportunities were missed and all. Then I said, you know, if there were people like this in my community where I grew up, I was not gonna be where I was that time. And then I gained the love of children. And then hearing the opportunities that even after BQCC training, you can further your studies further, you can register at the college. It was a technical SA that time, before it was amalgamated with UNISA. Then I registered right away. And the stipend that we were getting that time, it was 700 Rand. I remember clearly. Then I registered. I did not mind, or I did not think further about where I'm going to get the money to pay for my studies. I just registered. Then by the God's grace, while I was still on my studying path, opportunities came from NACCW for small bursaries. Then I had that opportunity. Then I grew, and here I am today. I'm happy that I took the opportunity. Yeah, thank you.
So, Gita, I want to point out, emphasize one thing you did say, and I don't want to lose it. We become ambassadors. We are the ones who explain to society who we are and what we do. And maybe you all have had this experience of trying to explain to your family what a childcare worker is. Have you ever had to do that? Because very difficult. So what you were describing, part of what you're describing, is that you became an ambassador of childcare work to the rest of the world. I think that's an important point.
Yeah.
So thank you. I see a hand up there, somebody. Owen, can you see whose hand is up?
Can you speak, Mr. W.M. Tlangisa? Your hand is up, you can speak.
Yes, greetings. Thanks a lot, Professor, for the presentation. My journey as well was more or less like that. I was, after finishing my matric, I was unemployed and I was at the library, just reading books. And I came across an advert from an organization known as Study Trust, which was offering bursary for tertiary institutions. Then I responded to that advert, and I didn't know anything about child and youth development, but it was one of the causes that they were sponsoring, and I applied for it, and luckily I received a letter of acceptance for the bursary. Then the struggle began because I didn't know anything about it, and I went to the then Technical Natal, it's now Durban University of Technology, and Dr. Frida Randell, who was the HOD of the department, she helped me to register because it was full already because I didn't apply on time. But now I'm in a dilemma here. I've got a bursary to study this course and the course is full. And the staff who were helping us by then told me that no, it's full. Fortunately, by the grace of God, the HOD lent me an ear and I was accepted to study child and youth development. And it was all new to me, but through practical learning, we went to child and youth care centers. That is where I got to know about child and youth care, really. My journey started then. I work at Lake Haven Child and Youth Care Center in Durban. And since then, that was my journey. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I don't see any other comments in the chat box. Are there any other people that would just share how they started in the field or how they stumbled
Right.
into
Who stumbled in here? Right.
I think Mel is want to share her journey. Mel, welcome. Good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to Nick.
Good morning, Merle.
And if there's nobody else, I would like to just share my journey, Mr. Chair, because I also stumbled in. I was going to become a teacher, and I was training in my last year after having done my degree to become a teacher, and I was the first person in my family to have the opportunity to complete university, and I during that year, as part of community service, I began working at a children's home, helping children with homework, and in that time, that was 1970 something, 1980. Children's homes were in the white community in South Africa really moving from having been very, very tightly controlled to being something more humane, if I can put it that way. But the place I went to was pretty wild, to say the least. But for the first couple of weeks, I went and did homework supervision with a group of young people, and everything went beautifully. And I thought, oh, this is very nice. I'm doing quite well, and so on. And then in the third week, the door burst open as I was sitting waiting for the kids to come. And a young woman of 4'11", very tiny, I can't do the maths and translate into meters, came in, bursting in, shouting at the top of her voice, words that I'd only ever read before, and screaming at what she was not going to do and why I shouldn't be there and what was I doing there in the first place. And I think she added that I was not her mother, so I couldn't make her study. And I think from that moment onwards, I became really just, it opened my mind to the extent of suffering of so many children in our country. And I was thinking that if that was the best our country had to offer at that time, because we all know that services for white children were better funded than others, then what could the worst possibly be? And I at the end of my year's study, my parents were horrified to know that I didn't actually apply for a single teaching job. And I eventually plucked up the courage to say to them, you know, I would really like to go and work in that children's home. And that cuts a very long story short, but I was fortunate enough to be connected into a children's home where there were a lot of people who were also trying to do things differently. And I was then immediately connected into the NACCW. And that's why I think I believe so much in this organization, because unless we are connected in with like-minded people, the work is too difficult and it's too complex, and the forces that sort of are against us, as it were, are too great to be able to survive simply on our own. And so I think that the collegial work that we have done over the years in developing child and youth care workers and being able to work against cruelty in our country. And that's really what I see child and youth care workers being, is working against the forces of cruelty. And I think that so I was very fortunate to connect in with NACCW and then move later into NACCW. But I'm happy to say that that young person who taught me such a lot, as Nick said, is somebody who I am still in contact with today, and is a beautiful woman of 50-something now, who teaches other people lots in life as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Merle.
Thank you very much, Mel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Open with others around child and youth care. I don't see any other hands here.
Chair, I think that we have a comment. We have a comment from Jabu that just like Merle, I think, she says she too became the first graduate in her family. She didn't complete that in her story. We've got Innocent, whose hand is up, and we've got SR here who made a comment. I'll just read it out for everybody. Mine started as a healthcare worker for 8 years, volunteering on a volunteer basis, and there was a post for childcare workers in a residential setting. I applied, I was called for interviews, and I had no idea what child and youth care was. Unfortunately, I was successful on the interview, got the job in the secure care center, was trained and introduced to child and youth care, and there's no way back till today. That's a lovely story. Innocent, floor is yours.
Good day, everyone. I'd love to thank for this opportunity of telling about my journey as a CYCW. I've started like it was after 2009. Okay, I started my journey like I was raised by my mother and a stepfather, so they were married in a property. So when they break up, like their marriage, it became to an end. It came to an end, and then when they break up, I was supposed to go back to live with my grandmother, because my grandmother was living alone with my siblings, my aunties and uncles, and then I started living with them, and then I've ended being a dropout at school. And then when I was dropped out, I found out that no one wants to go and get my remove from school so that I can continue learning. After that, when I became a dropout at grade 12, at grade 10, I mean, when I became a dropout, I stayed with my grandmother, where I started to be independent because my family, my grandmother was poor. We were living or eating on a garden because my grandfather used to plant. So it's how we survived at home. Then I met DSD, social development, are the one who helped me because firstly they took me to the organization where there were some children, and then I started attending the organization. I started to they get me back to school. They managed to get me back to school. And then I went back to school like it was a college. Then when I was at college, I've done well. Then I was back at home again because I didn't get any job after college. And then when I get back home, I went to the center, so some granny hired me to a center where the children came after daily care. When they came out of school, they go there and get some food and they bring some practices they were doing for the children. And then I was a gardener there when I started my garden journey, and then I started fell in love with the children, those who are attending, and then I started play with them the games on the center, up until the that granny, because she says she started this center with her pocket money of the grant. They were getting grant by that time. And then so with the grant money they cooked at the mall for the poor, and then they joined there, and then the center became successful, and then there boom was me. I got the job from garden, and then when I fell in love with the children, I got a job of a caregiver. I was a caregiver for 5 years. And then I was in train by that time. After then, the DST, Sishiko Risk Management and Solution, gave us a internship, and then we attended and booked. They booked us a hotel and give us a proper I'm sorry about that. And then they give us a proper training, and then we've graduated on 2009. We graduated, and then from there, I've worked at the center till I came across to NACCW, which is one I'm getting more developed since I met NACCW, and then thank you. I just want to cut myself short. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your story, Innocent. We glad that you have joined us and part of the Child and Youth Care family. Okay, thank you. Are there any? Yes,
there's a comment here, which I think is a lovely comment. It says, "I just love how through the sharing we show our vulnerabilities as well as our highlights." I think that's a really lovely comment. I think I saw Isabel's hand up. I'm not too sure if I'm correct.
Yeah, you're correct. I just wanted to share that I finished high school and started university, and I was studying international relations at Midland State University. Midway, my father lost his job and he could not afford the fees for university and for residence. Then I applied for the Mugabe Presidential Scholarship, and I applied for law at Wits, and they rejected my application. They said it was late. Then the bursary committee tried UKZN for social work, and they found out that it was also closed. And they came back to me to say that the only university that was still open was DUT, and they had a course called Child and Youth Development. And they encouraged me to try again last year, since my marks were okay, to try again the following year, because the course, they didn't know the course, and they were sure that I would never get a job in Zimbabwe, because there was no child in youth care in Zimbabwe. And the irony is that they said I could never get a job. I got a job whilst I was still studying. And I graduated at DUT with my diploma, and then went for the degree. And I've been working in childcare since. And like what Jabu said, I was the first graduate in my family. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Isabel, for sharing with us. Yeah, there was another hand. Let me see.
Yes.
Cello, what is the name here? You may speak.
Sorry. Afternoon, everyone. My name is Selo Khadi.
Yeah.
Yes. My life changing experience, my journey, it started in 2002. I was working as an auxiliary nurse at the old age home. It was next door to the children's home that I'm working at now at the moment. So while I was doing more than what a social auxiliary nurse used to do, because we were taking vital signs and whatnot, but I will go and like with the patients, I'll do more, like paint their nails, put makeup, especially those who were bedridden and they didn't find themselves waiting. So I will comb their hair, wash their hair, everything that they will want, they will need, not want, they will need me to assist them with. I will go extra mile for them. So those things I will do it when it was my break time, like when I have to go for lunch. So one day there was this lady who came to see her mother, and she was like, "Mommy, is this the lady that you always tell me about, that always clean you and put makeup on you, also put nail polish and whatnot?" And the mother said yes. And she was like, "I need to talk to you and the unit manager, because there's something that I will want you to experience. It will be like only for 2 weeks. And if you don't like it, you can just say you don't like the experience, and then you can come back again to the nursing sector." So I did go with her to my unit manager, and then my unit manager said, "Oh, you can take her." And she was like, "Let's go to where I work." So I went with her, not knowing it's a children's home. So when I got there, she introduced me to the children who she was working with. It was after school. Everyone like was coming back from school. And I was like, "Yo, what is this?" And she started saying, "This is a children's home. It's place of safety for the children who went through a lot in the community with their families, abuse, like different things." And then she said, "If you like to do this, I will employ you, but I'm giving you like 2 weeks so that you can see what we do. You can follow me and see how we do things." And also there's another child who doesn't open to other people. Like she has been there, I think it was for 8 months, because I came to that place in August, end of 2008 in August. So she was like, tomorrow when you come, I will introduce you to the child, and you're gonna accompany the child to she was going to, oh, I forgot the place, because it wasn't a school. She wasn't at school. She was going to, I forgot. So I had to accompany, I will remember the name. I had to accompany the child. So I was like, what did I throw myself into? So, but the following day I came, I met the child, I greeted the child just kept quiet. But I was like, okay, because they gave me brief background about her. So, but I didn't use that. I just said, I will learn the child on my own, even though I know the background. So I went with her, I accompanied her with the driver, and then I came back, and they were the name of the mentor is Adina Menhart, who took me from the hospital side. When I came back, she was like, what happened? How was the child in the car? I was like, she was quiet, but she just complimented my clothes, my shoes, and that was it. When I started a conversation with her, she just kept quiet. She said, no, don't worry, because you still have 2 weeks. So I did accompany her for that 2 weeks. Before the end of that 2 weeks, she started opening up, telling me her story, her actual story, because they had my organization had her background, but the child perspective, like what had happened to her. So I was like, I didn't know that there was this part of the world, because I came from the rural areas. There was no children's home. There was no care centers. I grew up with my mom, a single mother, and my grandmother, my paternal grandmother. So I wasn't exposed to that. Even though I didn't have a father who passed away, my aunties and my uncles were part of my childhood. When I was growing up, they bring clothes, food, and whatnot. I didn't miss anything. So I was like, what did I get myself into? So I started telling I told my mentor, Adina Menhart, that, I think I enjoy being here because this work is unpredictable. It's not like you have to have a manual and say, when this person does this, you will do this. So I have to use myself as a tool. So that's when I started enjoying childcare. And even now, I'm still, I registered with NSCCW. I didn't finish due to lack of finance, because for like 4 to 6 years, I was underpaid, but I did enjoy my job. I worked. I came to work at the normal time. I worked throughout. So it was when 2021 COVID hit, and I lost lots of my family members. And also it was when, if it wasn't 2020 to 2021, that's when the council said the people who don't have qualification shouldn't work and whatnot. So I resigned, I left, but I registered with NSCCW for NQF level 5, that I'm still trying to complete the assessment. So my journey is, the children need us. And when you choose the child and youth care, you need to be committed. That's what I've learned. You need to be committed and dedicated. And throughout the group supervisions, individual supervision, and in-service trainings that I received at my workplace with Joyce Kosa, who is child and youth care workers managers. I think I excelled because of her and Adina Menhart, and also the kids that I work with, because the behavior is unpredictable. Today you will know this, tomorrow the child is in her own or his own world. So I am happy to be part of this child and youth care week celebration, and having a lot of information from from everyone around the world. Thank you so much.
That was an excellent example of learning relational childcare practice.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing with us, and we could hear that you are sharing with us how you work in the moment in dealing with all the children that you have around you. There are no other hands that are popping up here. Zeni, I don't know if there's any other comments.
I just think that the last comment from Jabu, that I'm finding our stories unique and different, but they have that common touch. I like it. We all have stumbling stories to tell, but I'm thinking of our Izibindi Izikuleni buddy beat, where learners are grouped with similar issues, share their experiences, find strategies to cope and deal with life and challenges, developing coping skills and having some fun. I think she's referring to how, like as an NACCW team of childcare workers, we stand there for each other, support each other, and work. That kind of experience is rippling into program designs of getting children to feel that kind of connection and support for each other in groups. Thanks.
Thank you, Zeni. Nick, I'm not sure if you want to say anything else before we ask someone to do the vote of thanks.
Well, just one comment. What has happened over the last hour is exactly what I intended with my title. That is to draw people into reflection, connection, intentionality, and alignment with the child and youth care work. So thank you, participants, very much.
Yeah, and thank you, Nick, that you have drawn them in and drawn them out, and for all of those that were sharing with us. But we will now call on our Deputy Chairperson, Mrs. Fiona Bagloyd, to do the vote of thanks, and then we will close our day with another song, and we can all actually join in when the group sing, but let them start first, because I heard someone was out of tune, out of line earlier on. I'm not sure if it was you, Nick.
No.
It was a baritone. Yeah. Fiona, can we hand over to you?
Hi, good morning, everybody. I think just to acknowledge, it's been such a beautiful, powerful morning, and I don't think we could have asked for a more fitting, esteemed level of a speaker for an opportunity to be here today. Considering the fact that, Nick, you've got such a vast knowledge and experience across many different things. If we listen to you, you can go on and on sharing some beautiful experiences, fact that you come from residential, from mental health, from foster care, from community settings. I think just the vast nature of the fact that you come from a field of recognizing that social work and child and youth care work fields go together and they can coexist together to provide a better service to our children. So I think maybe just to start by acknowledging you as our guest speaker, and the fact that your involvement and your passion comes out so clearly in everything that you share with us, especially because of the fact that we can see it in your contributions across the world, across different countries, and especially the impact that you've had in South Africa in all the workshops and all the opportunities you've given us. So I want to acknowledge that and thank you for that on behalf of NACCW. I think what you started off conveying with us this morning was just this whole beautiful concept of stumbling. It's a lovely word that we used here this morning. And it resonated with many in this space today, because many of us, including myself, stumbled into the sector, not knowing what it's really going to be about and what it's going to bring to us individually as we got to know what child and youth care work was. So yeah, when you talk about resonance and when you talk about understanding the sector and coming to know it so much better that you fall in love with it, there's no other word for it, you fall in love with it and you want to stay in the sector and do more for the sector. I found it interesting in how you conveyed that you started as a social work and found your way into child and youth care space as well, because similar to my story, I'm coming from a social work background as well. And the fact that I landed up in 2011 in the child and youth care residential space, not knowing what I was getting into, not even knowing what child and youth care worker was at that time. And one of the things I really needed to find time to grasp was to understand what child and youth care work was about firstly. And stumbling my way through, finding myself in a residential facility that was not providing the best of child and youth care practice, I must acknowledge and respect the fact that NSCCW has been a helping hand and a generous hand of support to many of us in this country, you know, leading us in the right direction, providing the space for all of us to find our way and to understand what the sector is and what it should be. So when you speak around transformation there, I just want to note that, you know, with transformation, it takes place step by step, and it's through very small but significant changes that happen. And those changes, as you spoke about, came in very small ways in the examples you shared as well. You spoke about how you had to get involved in supervision and bringing together like-minded people to supervise like-minded professions. You spoke about creating space for an equal voice for child and youth care workers. And I think that resonates with us, knowing that we are a young profession. We still have a long way to go in making that a more productive and more, valuable statement for our country. With transformation comes the fact that there's recognition. And I think your conversation around recognizing child and youth care as a separate profession is important, that it comes with its own identifiable skill set. It comes with recognition of the fact that it's a profession that has its own principles, its own core values that need to be respected. And I think many of us this morning will take that message back to others in the field, that we go back out of a week of International Child and Youth Care Week, ending on a beautiful note of stories and lovely celebration around the value of child and youth care work in the sector. And recognizing that there's so much more to do, of course. We're such a young profession. We have a lot to do in this country to improve many things around how we better the service that we provide. I also saw you speak around culture and the fact that in different countries, we all have our own dynamics and we have our own diversity. And I think as you've seen through your visits in South Africa, that our country is quite unique in that sense of being able to recognize that we have so much of diversity, we have so much of cultural history and richness to offer, and it comes out in the field that we're in because of the diverse nature of people that we work with and children that we work with. So recognizing that value and the fact that NSCCW has played such an important role through all of this. Just for a simple example of saying other countries recognized South Africa, other countries recognized the models, the practices, the good practice and the theory behind child and youth care that they were lacking in, to be able to take it from NSCCW and replicate in other countries. I think that's valuable enough for us to know, hold our heads up high and appreciate and be proud of where we've come in this short period of time in child and youth care. So well done to everybody in the sector, because every single person plays an important role in bringing together a sector that we all can be proud of. And thank you to NACCW for also doing this, and to you, Nick, for that effort that you put in to help us on this journey, and to be a beautiful partner and role player that has also, put your hand in terms of supporting the training and the workshops and the skill set and knowledge that have helped us on this journey. So we acknowledge that. We applaud you for being a constant in NACCW journey. We acknowledge the fact that you are always part of everything that we do. And it's just a beautiful fitting ending to acknowledge you as someone important in our journeys through this process. What I liked about this morning was that it was a lot about your usual way of doing things, engaging with everybody and bringing others into the picture. And the narratives that we heard this morning, I think, have been a beautiful testimony to the work that is there in child and youth care. The fact that we are so diverse that even if you're coming from, beautiful example, coming from a background of being a gardener, you can still be able to say, I have the love and the passion and the heart for doing child and youth care. And if you have a good intention to want to do something, you can go anywhere in child care. So I think that's one of the diverse things about this country, is that it doesn't matter where we've all come from. We're still on this journey, and we're still moving in the right direction of good childcare practice. And whatever we do, wherever we've come from, all our experiences and our history is bringing it together so that we are able to share even better in what we share as the narratives to our children, and giving them these beautiful stories will help them grow into understanding that it's so much more than your background and your history. Anything is available to us. All opportunities are there. There's no limit to the sky anymore if we have childcare workers working with children. So thank you to everybody. Thank you for all of you being present. Thank you for the effort put in for this whole week's program, to the facilitators who brought us together, and especially to you, Nick, for coming together and putting this beautiful session for us to engage and share some of our lovely life stories. So with that said, I just wish everybody well. It's not the end of this week. It's a whole month of Child and Youth Care Month for us to celebrate. Maybe continue on this journey of sharing and finding ways to rejoice and take back to others who are not here today in the session. Take back all the lovely stories, the passion, the joy, the wonderful good feelings that we get out of being childcare workers. Take it to other parts of the country that are not being reached, and let others embrace child and youth care the way we have. So thank you for this opportunity, and I wish everybody well, and thank you for the session.
Thank you very much, Fiona. Let's give ourselves a big round of applause. I see some of the hearts are there. Thank you to all, that we can end our Child and Youth Care Week on this high note. And then we will now invite our choir to do us the honor and just close for us with that hymn. Choir.
Usibindilona abazange bambu usibindilona ekhonyolweni abazange bambu usibindilona justice abazange bambu usibindilona kuti esti abazange bambu 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 usibindilona uti abazange bambu usibindilona justice abazange bambu 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 abazange Usibindilo olweni abazange bambo. Usibindilo na usibindilo community abazange bambo.
Halala, halala. Thank you.
Halala.
Thank you. Yeah. Next year, Nick, we will be 50 years as the NACCW, and we hope to come together. We're looking at going there to Cape Town, but we will. People must watch the post as we are planning to celebrate our half century as the National Association of Child Care Workers.
I will be there.
Thank you, Nick. Your seat is booked. So thank you once again, everybody. And on that note, we're saying goodbye to all of you. Fiona has already wished you all the best for the weekend and the month that lie ahead. And also, Nick, have a good day further on. Thank you then, everybody, and goodbye. We close then this session.